The desert moon was quiet when Aaron found her. His rover cooled with a tired sigh. He had been scavenging panels from a wreck and was ready to go home. Then his headlamp caught a small shape at the base of a dune curled, shaking, half buried in cold sand. Not an animal, a person. He dimmed the light so it would not hurt her eyes. He listened and heard a thin, ragged breath. He climbed down and walked slowly, hands open. He crouched a few steps away so he would not tower over her. In the pale starlight he saw violet-gray skin and hair threaded with dull silver. A metal collar hugged her throat, its tiny lights pulsing like an eye that never slept. Rag cloth pressed to her side had gone dark with blood. She tried to push herself up and failed. Fear lived in her eyes. She expected pain. "I'm Aaron," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." He took off a glove and set a water bottle on the sand, close enough to reach, not close enough to rush her. He stepped back and waited. After a long minute, her hand moved. Her fingers shook so much, the water sloshed, but she drank. She coughed, then took more. A little color returned. Aaron understood the road ahead. The wound needed cleaning. The collar meant slavers. The tracking bead inside it meant danger if he touched it wrong. He could pretend he had not found her. He could leave and keep his life quiet. He had told himself such stories when he was young and afraid. He thought of a night years ago when he had been the one half buried in sand. Not on this moon, but another rim world. A miner's wife had found him. She brought bread and a blanket. She said, "You are a person first." She did not ask what he was worth. That night split his life into a before and an after. He could not forget. "I'm going to lift you," he said. He moved slow, so the moment had room to breathe. "Only if you agree." Her eyes searched his face. At last she gave a small nod, almost nothing and meaning everything. He slid his arms under her shoulders and knees. She was light, but the weight felt large because it carried a story. She clutched the bottle and bit her lip when pain pulled at her side. He held steady and rose. The rover's door stuck, then gave with a low groan. He set her in the passenger seat and tucked his spare coat around her shoulders. It smelled like oil and metal and home. He adjusted the seat to keep pressure off the wound. He clipped a portable jammer under the dash to blur the collar's signal. It would not fool smart hunters forever. It would give them time. "Warm," she whispered, voice like dry leaves. The first word he had heard from her. "Good," he said. He handed her a small packet of salts to melt on her tongue. "Helps with shock." He turned the rover toward. The broken rocks were his garage hid like a secret. When they reached it, he backed the rover into the narrow mouth and dropped the camo screen. The cave swallowed them. He killed the engine. Silence rang. He could hear her breathing, slower now, a shade steadier. He brought a clean blanket and set it over her legs. "You're safe here," he said. He did not say it like a wish. He said it like a promise. He fetched the first aid kit and warm water. He would clean the wound. He would feed her soup. He would study the collar and find a way to free her without harm. He would do the work in front of him, one careful step at a time. Outside, the desert kept its own harsh laws. Inside his small circle of light, Aaron chose a different law. He looked at her and felt the choice settle in his bones. Simple and heavy and right. A human had found someone alone, wounded, and enslaved. He chose to save her. The night went on. The promise held. Aaron's garage was a cave of quiet tools and sleeping engines. He cleared the main workbench and laid a clean pad on top. Then he lifted the woman from the rover and set her down like she was made of glass. The light here was soft and white. It showed the truth without being cruel. Her wound was narrow but deep. Her breathing was shallow. The collar at her throat glowed with tiny, watchful lights. "I'm going to clean the cut now," he said. He spoke slowly so each word could land. "This will sting for a moment. I will stop if you tell me." She watched his hands, not his face. People who have been hurt often do that. Hands can help or harm. She was measuring which his would be. He opened the first aid kit. He warmed water and poured a little into a small bowl so it would not shock her skin. He showed her the sealant gel and the numbing injector. He did not rush. Trust is a door that opens one hinge at a time. She gave a small nod. He pressed the injector to her arm. Color came back to her lips as the pain slipped away. He cleaned the wound, picking out grit with a steady touch. She flinched once. He paused. She steadied. He went on. When the cut was clear, he spread the gel and watched it knit the edges together with a silver sheen. He wrapped it with soft bandage and tied the ends in a flat knot so it would not press when she moved. Only then did he look at the collar. He knew the type, a syndicate ring, model V9. Inside, a bead that spoke to the sky. Cut wrong, and the bead screamed to the slavers. Cut worse, and the ring locked like a fist. There were ways around it, but none were easy. He slid a portable jammer under the bench and flicked it on. The collar lights dimmed to a slow pulse. "Hungry?" he asked. She blinked, surprise breaking through the fog of pain. He heated soup in a small pot and poured it into a lid he used as a bowl. He broke a soft roll into pieces so she would not have to tear it. He set the food within reach. He stepped back again, giving her the space to choose. At first, she took cautious sips, like a person hiding from her own hunger. Then, she ate with quick, neat motions, eyes dropping to the bowl and lifting to the door. Dropping and lifting, a rhythm of old fear. When the bowl was empty, she held it as if holding it kept her in the room. Aaron pulled over a low stool and sat. He tapped his chest. "Aaron," he said at once, clear and gentle. Then he tapped the bench beside her, a question without pressure. For a long moment, only the garage fan answered. She touched the collar, as if to ask if it could speak for her instead. A tiny spark flashed under her fingers. She winced. "You don't have to tell me," he said. "You are safe whether you tell me or not." The words changed the air. They made room. She swallowed. Her voice came out dry and rough, like stone on stone. "Via," he repeated it, careful with the shape. "Via." He smiled because the sound felt right in his mouth. She looked at him and, for the first time, did not look away. He brought a shirt from a storage bin and cut the neck wide so it would not touch the ring. He laid it on the bench. "You can change behind the screen," he said, pointing to a curtained corner. "There is a small washroom as well. Warm water, clean towel." She looked at the screen, then down at the shirt, then back at him. He stood and turned his back. Not as a show, but as a simple fact. Her body was hers. While she moved behind the curtain, he checked the cumboard. A patrol ping was already out. Escaped property, West Flats, reward on recovery. The word property always left a bad taste in his mouth. He muted the alert and ran a quick scan. The jammer was working. Their little bubble of quiet would hold for a few hours, maybe more if luck liked them. Vea stepped out in the shirt. It hung soft on her frame. The wide neck cleared the collar by a finger's breadth. She kept one hand pressed to her bandage, the other hand resting on the bench as if the metal could keep her standing. Aaron rolled out a bedroll, near the engine heater where the air was warm. He shook a blanket until it puffed and settled. "You can sleep here," he said. "I will take the cot by the door. If you wake and need anything, say my name. I wake easy." She looked at the bedroll the way a thirsty person looks at rain. Then she lifted her head. "Why help?" she asked, not angry, just searching for a bridge she could trust. Aaron thought of the miner's wife. He thought of the night his life had split. "Because someone helped me," he said, "and because you told me your name." Something loosened in her face. The corner of her mouth lifted, small and real. She lay down and pulled the blanket up to her chin. The engine heater hummed. The garage lights dulled to a night glow. Aaron sat a while longer, head bent over a cracked manual for old relay towers. He traced a diagram with his finger, and imagined a field coil big enough to burn a bead without burning a person. He closed the book with care. Tomorrow he would try. Tonight he would keep watch. Veya's breathing evened. In sleep, she looked, young and fierce and very tired. Aaron drew a chalk line on the floor between them, not as a wall, but as a promise. No harm would cross it. Outside, the desert wind pressed at the rock. Inside, two people rested in a pocket of quiet they had made together. Names had been exchanged. Food had been shared. A plan had begun to take shape. Trust, thin as paper, lay between them. It was not much. It was everything. Dawn crept over the rock like a slow flame. Aaron woke first. He poured bitter tea into a metal cup and stood by the cumboard, watching the thin green line crawl across the screen. At first there was only static. Then a sharp ping cut the quiet. A syndicate patrol burst flashed in bright letters. Escaped property. West Flats. Recovery authorized. Reward posted. The word property made his jaw tighten. He muted the alert and checked the jammer. Its small blue light beat like a tired heart. Behind him, Veya stirred on the bedroll near the engine heater. She pushed the blanket down and touched her. Bandage. When she sat up, the wide collar of the shirt fell loose around her neck, careful not to brush the metal ring. Her eyes found Aaron. Fear lived there, but it was not alone anymore. Something gentler stood beside it. Tea, he asked. She nodded. He brought the cup and a second one for himself. Steam rose between them. She sipped and closed her eyes. Warm, she said. The same small word from last night, now steadier. He crouched so they were level. The jammer hides you here, he said. But it cannot last forever. The collar has a bead inside. It will try to talk to the sky. I know. A way to make it quiet. She looked at the ring at her throat. Her fingers hovered but did not touch. A way. He pulled a cracked map from a drawer and spread it on the bench. Old pencil marks crossed the canyon lines like threads. He tapped a point deep in the ridge country. There's a dead relay tower out here. Old kit. But the field coil is big. If I tune it right, we can burn the bead without burning you. She studied his face more than the map. Risk, she said softly. Yes, he answered. He did not dress the word up. But staying is risk too. Patrols will sweep. The jammer will look like a hole. Someone clever will notice. Veya set her cup down and folded her hands. If they come, I go. I run. You live. No, Aaron said, gentle but solid as a door. We go together. We finish this. She looked past him, past the map, to the small world inside the garage. The neat tools, the stacks of parts, the cot by the door, his coat on a hook, a life that fit into metal and routine. Why help? She asked again, not because she had not heard his answer, but because her old life made it hard to believe. Aaron leaned his hip against the bench. Because once, a stranger helped me, he said. Because I want this moon to be a place where a person can be found and not owned. Because you told me your name. When someone tells you their name, you owe them your best. Veya's mouth softened. She breathed in and let it out slow. My home has a river, she said. Bright fish, small like coins. The water sings against stone. Traders came one season. They brought sweets. They brought lies. I was taken on the road by the marsh. I ran once, in a storm. The sand hid me. The sand cut me. A handler left me to die because I was too much trouble. He said the desert would finish the work. Her eyes met his. It did not. It will not, Aaron said. He began to prepare as he talked. He packed tools into a canvas roll, microdrivers, clamp probes, a field tuner with a cracked screen, a coil reader he had built from scrap, a first aid kit with extra sealant. He added water pouches, 2 soft rolls, a slim blanket, and 3 beacon pellets that could throw a false scent into the wind. He pulled cold mesh from a shelf and draped it over the rover's hood to break the heat signature. He swapped the tires for a pair with quiet tread. Vea watched with careful attention. When he paused, she stepped forward and held the mesh while he fixed it. She moved slow, guarding her side, but she moved with purpose. "What can I do?" she asked. "Tell me if you feel the collar heat or hum," he said. "If it does, we stop." He slid a small coil reader near the ring and glanced at the numbers. "Output is low," he said. "That's good, but any movement could make it spike. We will wrap a scarf to hide the lights." He cut a wide strip from an old shirt and showed it to her. "Not tight, just cover." A buzz like a wasp sounded in the stone. Aaron's head snapped up. He crossed the floor and killed every light but the small lamp over the bench. He held a hand up. "Wait." In the far air outside the garage mouth, a patrol drone's engine rose, fell, and rose again as it traced the ridge. Vea's hand found the edge of the bench and held. The drone's sound moved away at last. Aaron did not relax yet. He counted to 30, then to 30 again. Silence held. He turned back and forced his breath to match hers, slow and even. 3. Rules, he said quietly. 1. You are not property. If anyone uses that word, they are wrong. 2. You decide what happens to your body. I do nothing without your yes. 3. If you feel fear or pain, say it. We change the plan if needed. We do not push through because we are proud. She listened like a student at the start of a better school. I am not property, she repeated. I decide. I will speak. He smiled, small and honest. Good. They ate a little, then rested through the heat. Aaron studied a page of relay diagrams until the lines made sense. Vea slept and woke and slept again. When the sun slid low and the rocks lost their glare, he helped her into the rover. He checked the jammer one last time, then set a timer on a dummy unit and hid it behind a rusted valve. If anyone scanned the cave later, they would find a hole with a false heartbeat and waste their time. At the threshold, he paused. The desert waited outside, wide and hard and beautiful. The first stars were already pricking the blue. Vea looked at them as if reading a map only she knew. Her hand floated, unsure, then touched his sleeve. Not to pull, just to be sure he was real. We go tonight, Aaron said. She nodded once. We go. He eased the rover into the open and turned the nose toward the dark ridges. The garage door whispered shut behind them. The moon stretched before them like a long breath. Between fear and hope, they chose hope and drove into it. They left at dusk, when the heat let go of the rocks and the sky turned soft and blue. Aaron checked the mesh over the rover's hood and the jammer under the dash. Vea touched the scarf that covered her collar. She met his eyes and nodded once. They were ready. The road was not really a road. It was broken stone, dry creek beds, and the pale lines of old rails that the desert had half eaten. The rover rolled slow at first, then steadier, as Aaron found the rhythm. Vea kept one hand on the dash to steady herself. Her other hand rested over her bandage. She breathed through the bumps. Tell me if the collar hums, Aaron said, or if your side aches too much. We stop when you say. She listened to her body and to the engine. It is quiet, she said. I am. All right. Stars came early on this moon. They looked close, like sparks caught in glass. Vea watched them, then looked forward again. The first time I ran, she said, voice low, the night felt like a big mouth. It tried to swallow me. This night feels different. Aaron kept his eyes on the path. This night has a job, he said. It is on our side. They passed a field of rusted girders that stuck up like old bones. The wind made a soft note as it slid through them. Aaron slowed to listen to the sound. Vea smiled a little. My city sings at dawn, she said. Not with wind, with walls. Stones tuned by our elders. You put your ear to the street, and you hear chords. I want to hear that, Aaron said. He meant it. She looked at him, testing if the wish was simple talk. His face stayed steady. She let herself picture the river then, just for a breath, the way it curled around the market stones. A dust storm rose, without warning. The front was a gray sheet, moving fast over the flats. Aaron dropped speed and switched to short-range beacons. The world became small, just the nose of the rover, the dark cut of rocks on either side, and the soft shape of Vea beside him. She reached up and gripped the overhead bar. When the rover jolted, her hand slid and found his sleeve. She did not pull. She just held so she could feel he was there. "I have you," Aaron said. He kept his voice calm and even, a rope to hold. He matched his breath to her, slow in, slow out, until their bodies agreed with the rhythm. The storm pushed and hissed. It passed like a long exhale. The air cleared. They moved on. They stopped once in a narrow wash to rest the engine. Aaron checked the collar with the coil reader. The numbers stayed low. He grinned, quick and relieved. He offered her a water pouch and a soft roll. She ate in quiet bites, then leaned back and closed her eyes. A tiny lizard peered from a crack and blinked at them. Vea laughed under her breath, a small sound that warmed the space. A thin buzz came from the open sky, there and gone, then there again. Patrol drone. Aaron killed the engine and threw a foil blanket over the hood in one quick move. He pointed to the ground. Vea slipped down and crouched against the rock with him. He touched the scarf at her neck, checking the cover without lifting it. She held so still, her eyelashes hardly moved. The drone passed once, then circled. Aaron counted in his head, 30, 60, 90. The sound faded. He did not stand yet. He waited for the long count, then lifted his head, clear. He looked at her and raised 3 fingers. 3 rules, Vea whispered before he could speak. "I am not property. I decide what happens to my body. I will speak if I fear or hurt." He nodded, proud of her, and a little proud of the rules too. They climbed back in and kept going. The ridges grew taller and closer. The path narrowed to a climb between black stone. The rover's tires gripped and groaned. Aaron talked to the machine like it was a friend running beside him. "Almost there," he said. "Easy now." At the top, the land opened into a basin of broken plates. In the center, the old relay tower tilted like a crooked tooth against the sky. They parked behind a fallen panel. Aaron listened for drones, crawlers, or the heavy foot of a syndicate truck. Nothing close. He motioned, and they slipped inside through a bent door. Dust lay thick. Consoles slept under a gray coat. Cables hung like old vines. In the middle of the room, the field coil waited. A black ring the size of a small room, wrapped in wire that still held a little shine. Aaron ran his hand near the coil, not touching, just feeling the air. Old tech held moods. This one felt tired, but not dead. He set the tuner on a crate, powered it with a fresh cell, and watched the cracked screen flicker to life. Numbers climbed. He smiled, hopeful and focused. He taped a square on the floor. "You'll stand here," he said to Vea. "When I say hold, you hold very still. If you feel heat, hum, or pain, say stop, and I cut power. We do this together. No pushing." She looked at the coil. She looked at him. "What do I think?" "Something you love," he said. "It helps keep your body calm. The field listens to calm more than fear. I will think of the river," she said at once. The word itself seemed to cool the room. They practiced the words. Hold, stop, again, go. They said them until they felt easy in the mouth. Aaron tested the coil with a scrap of wire and a strip of paper. The paper trembled when the field touched. It good. He dialed the focus down to a narrow cone, small as a bracelet. A sound lifted in the far air engines, faint but moving. Time was thinner than he wanted. He looked at Vea. She stood on the tape, shoulders back, jaw set, eyes steady. Fear was there, yes, but so was choice. Aaron took one breath, then another. He put his hand on the switch. Ready? Ready? She said. Her voice did not shake. Think of the river, he said. I am, she answered. He began the count. 3, 2. The room held its breath with them. Hope stood close, warm and bright. 1, Aaron said, and threw the switch. The coil woke with a deep hum. The air felt tight, like a storm about to fall. Dust lifted from the floor and hung like pale smoke. Vea stood on the taped square, shoulders straight, eyes steady. She breathed in slow. She let it out slow. River, she whispered to herself, like a soft song only she could hear. Tiny lights on the collar snapped from dim to frantic. The ring at her throat buzzed and flashed a harsh red. On the cracked tuner, screen numbers climbed too fast. Aaron eased the power down 1 notch, then another. He narrowed the cone until it was no wider than a bracelet. He did not look at the collar. He looked at the numbers and trusted his hands. The old relay answered with its own voice, bright, alive in a way that made the walls tremble. A dead console lit for the first time in years. In a far corner, a panel blinked a warning he did not like. Antenna boot in 90 seconds. If the tower woke its antenna, it might shout to the sky. He needed to finish before that shout. Hold, he said, calm and even. I hold, Vea said. Her fingers curled and uncurled at her sides. She kept her head still. She kept her eyes on nothing special, the way you look when you are thinking of a place that loves you. The river is clear, she said under her breath. There are bright fish. The collar fought back. A sharp spark snapped against her skin. She flinched, then stilled again. Aaron's hands moved without panic. He shifted the field half a degree, then eased the gain. The red light on the collar faltered, then burned brighter in a last show. The tuner screen showed the bead's shield, taking heat. A tiny bar next to it blinked, failsafe armed. If he backed off now, the bead would ping the syndicate with a clean fix. If he pushed too hard, the ring could lock and burn. Almost, he said, voice low. You are doing well. Stop, she asked, not from fear, but to check the rule. Not yet, he said. If you feel sharp pain, say stop, and I cut power. This is heat and light. It will pass. She nodded, bare and brave. The consoles. Timer ticked down. 68, 67, 66. Aaron found the old rhythm of hard work. Listen, adjust, trust. He dropped 2 more notches, then trimmed the cone again, until the field kissed only the bead and not the ring. The coil sang a note that made his bones buzz. He could taste metal on his tongue. He could feel the weight of choice. The thin edge between too much and not enough. Say the river's name, he told her. She spoke the word in her own language, a round sound that rolled like water over stone. The coil song steadied. The tuner screen flicked from armed to weak, then to open. The bead's shield cracked. Now, Aaron said, and tapped the overload with his thumb. The light in the room went white for a single breath. Heat brushed his face and was gone. The hum sank to silence. A small metal sound hit the floor. Clink. Aaron's heart thumped once, loud as a knock. He opened his eyes. A pie-sized thing lay by Vea's feet, dark and cracked like a burned seed. The bead. Smoke curled from the latch on the collar. He counted to 10, slow and careful, because old tech liked to pretend it was dead when it was not. Then he stepped in, pressed the manual release, and felt the lock give. The ring fell into his hand. Vea did not move at first. She touched her throat, almost afraid of her own skin. Her fingers found no hard edge, only warmth. Her breath came out in a sound that was half a laugh, half a sob. She looked at Aaron, surprised and shining, like sunrise after a long night. It's off, he said. The words felt bigger than the room. It's off. Free, she whispered, and the word changed the air. He set the ring on the floor and put his heel through it. Once, firm, so no one would ever wear it again. The bead. He swept into a tin and snapped the lid shut. He slid the tin under a dead console and rolled a crate in front of it. No signals. No ghosts. The antenna timer hit 12, 11:10. A new warning flashed on the side panel. Subsystem scan complete. A small light on the roof rack flickered. The tower was waking piece by piece, like an old man remembering a song. Aaron's gut tightened. If the antenna spun up and sent a test ping, someone might hear it. The syndicate liked old towers for that reason. They listened for strange wakes. "Can you walk?" he asked. Vi wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and nodded. Yes. He wrapped a clean scarf around her neck, not to hide, just to keep the cool air off skin that had worn metal too long. He checked her bandage. The seal held. The numbers on the coil reader were kind. He let himself smile for one heartbeat longer. Then he folded the tuner, pulled the power cell, and killed the coil. They stepped out into the canyon light. The sky over the ridge was a pale, honest blue. The wind felt new. Vea lifted her face to it and closed her eyes, like a swimmer tasting the first touch of home. Aaron watched her, and the hard knot in his chest finally loosened. Inside the relay, something clicked and began to spin. "Time to go," Aaron said. They ran the short run to the rover, not fast, but full of purpose. He helped her in. He stowed the tools. He started the engine. The mesh over the hood shook and settled. The rover rolled forward. Behind them, the old tower's antenna lifted and turned its blind face to the sky. Somewhere far away, a screen might blink. Somewhere a clerk might frown and make a note. It did not matter. The collar was off. Vea was free. They would handle whatever came next. Vea pressed her palm to her throat one more time, just to feel skin and nothing else. She looked at Aaron. Her smile was small and bright and full of wonder. "Thank you," she said. He nodded, eyes on the way out. "You told me your name," he said. "I promised to listen." The rover climbed the broken path and slipped back into the ribs of stone. Freedom sat between them, new, fragile, and real. The clock had not stopped. The road was not safe. But the hardest lock had opened, and the world, for the first time in a long time, felt wide. They did not get to hold the moment for long. As Aaron eased the rover away from the crooked tower, a soft whir rose behind the ridge, a sound like a needle in cloth, a patrol drone. Maybe the antenna had coughed a signal before he cut it. He did not swear. He only said, "Hold steady," and slid the rover into a narrow cut where rock threw a sharp shadow. Vea pressed one hand to the dash and the other to her scarf, feeling the new emptiness at her throat like a small sun. Her mouth was dry, but her eyes were bright. The drone skimmed the ridge and dipped to look into the canyon. Aaron palmed 2 beacon pellets, snapped their seals, and tossed them downstream. They burst into a faint hot scent that rode the wind stronger than any trace on their skin. The drone paused, confused, then wheeled and chased the false trail, like a hungry fish. "Good," Aaron breathed, and rolled out again. The road turned to broken plates of stone. The rover climbed and slid, climbed and slid. Vea matched her breaths to the engine. "Slow in, slow out. If you feel dizzy, say it," he told her. "We stop when you say." She shook her head. "I am with you." The flats opened like a wide mouth. On the far edge, a syndicate crawler moved on many legs, big as a house and slow as a storm front. It was not on them yet, but it would be. Aaron looked left, looked right, chose a path a careful driver would never choose. "New plan," he said, and cut toward a rust field where old rails lay like bones. An ore cart line fell away into a hidden gully. The winch still clung to its mount. Aaron jumped out, hooked the rover to a cable, and grinned at Vea, like a boy about to try something foolish and true. "Trust me?" he asked. "Yes," she said at once, and the words steadied. Both of them. He cranked the winch, until the cables sang, then slipped the rover's nose onto the track and let gravity take the lead. They dropped fast into the cut, no map remembered, wind in their faces, old iron flashing past. Vea's hand found his sleeve. She did not pull. She just stayed connected. Aaron laughed once, short and clean, not because they were safe, but because the path was working. Above, the crawler searched the plain and saw nothing but heat, ghosts, and history. In the gullies, shade, they slowed to a crawl. "Breathe with me," Aaron said, and they did 2 long breaths to settle the shakes that come after danger leaves. He parked under the ribs of a collapsed bridge and killed the engine. For a full minute, they listened to the world. Grit ticking on metal, wind combing scrub, their own hearts getting quiet. "Freedom is noisy," Vea whispered, a smile in her voice. "Sometimes," Aaron said, "sometimes it is a whisper. Today it needed to shout." He checked her bandage. The seal held. He lifted the coil reader near her neck out of habit and then stopped himself, smiling because there was no ring there anymore, only skin. "We still smell like the relay," he said. "Drones can taste that for an hour." He scooped fine dust from the gully wall and rubbed it on his forearms, his neck, the rims of the rover's vents. Vea dipped her fingers in the dust and, with slow, careful strokes, pressed it along his jaw and temples. "Now you look like the moon," she said, and for the first time her laugh was not held back by fear. He returned the touch, tapping a little dust on her cheekbones, on the silver threads in her hair, gentle as paint on a bell. Above them, a second drone passed, hunting the hot scent that had drifted far away. They waited it out, counting to 60, then to 60 again. When the sound faded, they moved. The cut opened into the rust fields, a maze of fallen girders and slag ponds gone to crust. Aaron threaded the rover through like a needle, never straight, always thinking 2 turns ahead. Twice, he reversed to slide around a pocket of soft ground. Twice Vea leaned to show him a gap his eyes had missed, her voice low and even. There, trust moved between them like a rope they both held. At the last tangle of iron, a wind shift brought a faint tremor in the air, the dull belly note of engines climbing over stone. "Under the bridge again," Aaron said, and they tucked in while a small convoy rattled along the high road. 2 bikes, 1 truck, all wearing syndicate gray. Vea's shoulders went hard, then eased when the convoy passed without slowing. Aaron did not push out right away. He gave it another slow count, then another, because caution is part of courage too. They rose into a low valley, where scrub grew in bright clumps, and lizards ran like quick thoughts. Here the wind broke into small pieces and the sky looked kinder. He let the rover idle, and then rest. He shared a pouch of water and half a soft roll. Vea chewed and watched a cloud peel from the ridge like thread from cloth. "When I was taken," she said quietly, "I thought freedom was a door someone else had to open for me. Now it feels like a place inside that comes back first." Aaron listened with his whole face. "We keep that place alive," he said, "with food, with sleep, with choices." He pointed east. "Freeport 9 is there. In the morning, we make for it. Papers, transport, news, and, if you want, a message home." Vea's eyes filled and did not spill. She nodded, "Yes. And before I go to the river, if others come with callers." She did not finish. She did not need to. Aaron looked at his hands, at the tools, at the road that had brought them here. "We will help who we can," he said. One by one, the valley breathed around them. The last light softened the stone. They lay their seats back and slept in turn, he first, then she, while the rover kept quiet watch. Dawn would find them. So would the next choice. For now, freedom was a small camp in their chests, warm and steady, asking only this price: stay brave, stay kind, keep going. Dawn came soft over the valley, spilling pale gold across the scrub. The air was cool and still, as if the world had paused to give them a clean start. Aaron woke first, stretching the stiffness from his shoulders. He checked the horizon for movement, but the long shadow of the ridge and a thin curl of cloud. The rover sat ready, quiet, and patient. Inside, Vea was still asleep, her scarf loose, her hair a silver thread against the blanket. For the first time, there was no line of tension on her face. He didn't wake her right away. He let her have that extra slice of peace before the road called again. When she did stir, she blinked into the light, and a small smile found her lips. "It feels different," she said softly. "It is," Aaron replied. "Today we go to Freeport 9. The rover climbed out of the valley and onto the broad east road. They kept their pace easy, careful not to throw dust trails for any sharp-eyed drones. The landscape changed as they went, ridges giving way to flatter ground, scattered scrub thickening into low green patches. In the distance, spires of metal began to break the horizon, docking towers, antennas, the skeleton of a city that had never belonged to the syndicate. Vey leaned forward, her eyes following the towers. "Safe?" she asked. "Safe enough," Aaron said. "Freeport doesn't ask where you've been, only where you're going." The closer they came, the busier the road became. Merchant carts creaked under tarp-covered loads. A long transport rolled past, its hull painted with bright letters from a dozen worlds. Traders on foot walked in groups, their voices carrying snippets of different languages. Vea's head turned again and again, taking in every new color, every unfamiliar sound. At the city's edge, Aaron parked in a quiet corner of the outer market. The air smelled of metal, spices, and engine oil. "We'll get you papers," he said. "Then a pass to the transport ring. From there, a route to your river." She didn't move. Her gaze swept the market, lingering on people who walked without collars, on children laughing between stalls, on merchants calling out prices without fear in their voices. She swallowed once, then shook her head gently. "Later, later." Aaron frowned. "You don't want to go home." "I do," she said. Her voice was firm, but soft at the edges. "But there are others, still with collars, still waiting in the dark. If I go now, I will always wonder. We can help them. You know how." Aaron studied her face. There was no hesitation there, only the calm of someone who had decided. He exhaled slowly. "It will be dangerous," he warned. "So was this," she reminded him, "and we made it." He thought about the tools in the rover, the relay maps in his head, the tricks that had carried them past drones and crawlers. He thought about how the syndicate looked at people like her and saw only a number on a ledger. He thought about the miner's wife who had once helped him, and how the smallest kindness can split a life in two before and after. "All right," he said finally. "We help who we can." They found a small stall space in a quiet corner of the port, where sunlight fell in warm stripes across the floor. No sign, no flag, just an open door, a bench for tools, and a curtain that led to the back. Aaron fixed machines in the open. In the back, hidden from syndicate eyes, they cut collars. First, no one came. Then one evening, a shadow appeared in the doorway, a boy with a collar too loose for his thin neck. Vea stepped forward, her voice gentle, her hand steady. "You are safe," she told him. He didn't believe her yet. That was fine. She knew how long it could take to hear those words and trust them. Days turned into weeks. One by one, people came, some limping, some silent, some crying before they crossed the threshold. Aaron tuned the coil and broke the beads. Vea wrapped scarves around freed throats and spoke river names in 3 languages, until fear loosened from their shoulders. The first time someone they had helped returned without a collar and without shaking, Vea cried openly. Aaron was beside her, a clean rag in one hand, a smile on his face. "You humans," she said through her tears, "are very noisy." He chuckled. "Sorry." She shook her head. "Not like that. Your hearts, they are noisy. I think I like it." They would send her home one day when she was ready, when the river was calling louder than the work. But for now, the river could wait. The boat they were building here made of courage, trust, and the quiet promise to act was still needed. When people in the market asked why a human would risk so much for a stranger, Erin's answer was always the same: because someone should, and because she told me her name. In the end, that was the truest part of the story. Not just that a human found someone alone, wounded, and enslaved, but that he chose to save her. And together, they chose to save others. The road had started with two people in the dark. Now, it was wide enough for many feet to walk. And somewhere, far from the desert moon, a river waited, knowing that when Vea returned, she would not come back alone.